So, Josh, I was recently up in New Hampshire for a video shoot at the top of Mount Washington. Before we went to the top of the mountain, we stayed at a hotel at the bottom of the mountain. I went out with my photographer. We had dinner. We got back to the hotel. He went to bed. I was by myself. I decided to walk around the hotel, and I went out back, and there were kids and parents, and they were doing s'mores because the hotel was giving out these s'mores kits to hang out around the fire and have s'mores. And my instinct was, I should go get one and get myself a s'more. I'm really craving one. But then I realized, as a back nine guy in my 50s, it would be kind of creepy for a guy by himself to be out there with these little kids making s'mores. So I was like, stop myself. And I was like, can't do it. So we'll ponder this and more next on the back nine. My instinct was right? Like I couldn't go in and be like, hey, can I have a s'more kit and sit there by myself with a bunch of little kids doing s'mores and I have nobody with me except me?
Context is
a little creeper.
Context is
creepery.
Right? Were there no other adults sitting around the fire? There were adults
with their parents. Yeah. Yeah, it was all kids and parents, and I was by myself sitting there. I was sitting there kind of minding my own business, and then all of a sudden this swarm of people came with their s'mores kits, and I was like, oh, I forgot they're giving out s'mores at this hotel. I don't know. My instinct was that'll seem a little creeperish.
Well, you can't go wrong with that, with your reaction, right? I mean, you played the conservative, safe play, which is always wise. But I think if there were other parents there, and especially,
I love s'mores. I'm going to go get one.
Especially because you were sitting there already, I don't think that would have been creepy.
It's not that this guy's just sitting there in a chair,
waiting for the kids to come because he's seeking an advisable location to.
Anyway,
but s'mores, right?
Yeah.
When was the last time you had a s'more?
Well,
do you do the various?
We have them up on the Cape with the
roasts,
fire pit. Yeah. So we make them up there when I'm up there. So. But the cool thing about that was, and it was a little while back now, but I should talk about that trip, man. I've been to the top of Mount Washington twice now. We have a client in Massachusetts who put the windows in at the observation tower there, high-tech window and door.
This is New
window
Hampshire.
And siding in New Hampshire. He's a Boston client. And we went up when he installed the windows last year, and we went up this summer to see how they survived the winter. And it's just a cool, really different kind of way to do a commercial. And it's really taking hold in Boston, like he's known now. But I don't know how many people have been to the top of Mount Washington. I
don't know how many people have been in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Last
year when I went up, it was so foggy that I couldn't see where I was driving other than the road, which was great. This time it was completely different. It was crystal clear. And I've driven in St. John on the wrong side of the road around cliffs. I've driven in California, around cliffs, Tahoe, crazy. I've done some crazy driving in my life. That was the scariest I've ever been driving. Yes, because you can't imagine that road going up to Mount Washington when you can actually see it. I was wishing it was foggy because when it was clear, I just literally one false move and you're gone. It's over. It's literally. So I'm driving. I actually moved when there weren't cars coming the other way. We were early enough in the morning. I was in the middle of the road. I was and am I white knuckling it? Oof.
I just got a text from the Tourism Board of New Hampshire telling you to stop telling people it's scary to go to New Hampshire.
Well, there's different ways to go up there. They actually have a place you can park and take this little train up. People hike it. Actually, while I was there, it was the coolest thing. This photographer came up and said, do I look inconspicuous? I'm like, yeah, you look like a tourist. She had a camera. And she goes, because they're about to do a proposal over there. And she was sneaking up with it. So we got to see a wedding proposal up there. It was a beautiful day.
Nice.
It was completely different than last year. It was foggy and cold. And it was August. So it literally can be foggy and almost snowing in August at the top of Mount Washington. Or it can be like it was when we were up there. You could see, 6 miles and beautiful. And
when you talk to people who, what states they've been to, New Hampshire is one that's often not on the list.
Yeah, but as
it's hard to
get
to.
New Englander,
New Englanders would get there.
I'm from Cape Cod, so I've been all over those areas. But Mount Washington is unique to get to the top of it, and I've done it for work twice. I'd love to just go back there and hike and hang out because it's really cool.
I was there playing hockey in college. We played in juniors. I mean, we played Kimball Union Academy is in New Hampshire.
Now, based on a couple of guests that we've had, I think you're working fast and loose with playing.
Well, that was uncalled for. I mean,
you were there.
In juniors, I played.
Okay.
In juniors, I played a lot, but in college.
Wow. We've had a couple guests that told me that you were.
I'm bruised. What? Did you see what happened there? Am I bleeding? I just got tagged. I didn't even know it was coming.
It's just, we've done a lot of episodes.
Wow.
We've had a few former teammates.
All right, let's go on. Let's just move on past that.
All right,
we have a good guest.
Maybe she
might be able to help.
Maybe she can help you with some health
or
and
help
wellness.
you with your insecurity that you had to throw that punch.
Kerri Ballinger is our guest. She is the owner of Wildflower Allergy and Herbs, and I just met Kerri a couple weeks ago. And obviously, if you've listened to the episodes on the show, and this topic comes up, Josh and I are very passionate about integrative medicine and wellness and alternate ways other than Western medicine to heal and get yourself better. Kerri, great to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
First question for you is, what is the background of this, how you get started? I know you have a personal story yourself, and then you also have something that happened with your son that got you into this world. Maybe take us through how this all started.
It actually started when I was like 14. I had really bad asthma and eczema from early childhood till about that point. And I would go over to my friend's house and play. And one of her family members was a doctor, and the other one was kind of a hippie guru type woman. And every time my asthma would flare up, she would say, okay, lay on the table. And she wouldn't touch me. She would just kind of lay hands over me. And then my asthma would decrease and I would feel better, get up and continue to play. And then later on in life, I became type 1 diabetic at the age of 19. And I kind of told you guys a story about that. I got bit by a spider that caused the venom to attack my weakest gene, which was in my pancreas, and completely killed my pancreas because my entire family does not have type 1 diabetes. I'm the only one that has it. And we've gone back generations just to look where it had come from, and no one else has had it.
So something they're like an allergic reaction to the bite.
Yeah, well, we have a lot more allergies than what a lot of people realize and kind of ignore. And most of the times when we do have reactions to things, it's because our body doesn't like it.
Right.
And you can call it an allergy, you can call it a sensitivity, but it's a reaction that your body is telling you, stay away from it, get away from it. We don't like this. So at that point, when I became type 1 diabetic, I wasn't taking care of myself so great. I was 19, and at the time, the technology with the insulin pumps wasn't great. I was told I'd never have children. I was told that I didn't have much longer to live. I had lost all my hair. I had lost all my muscle tone. I had lost about 35 pounds. I'll never forget my dad saying, I'll never walk you down the aisle, and that I can visualize to this day, and it's 30 years later. So, and then I just started teaching, and this is a few years later, I started teaching, and I had gone years with no help. I spent, stints in the hospital, 3-4 weeks at a time in the hospital. They could not figure out what was going on. To backtrack a little bit, when I had met my husband, he said, look, I want children. Can you put that pump thing on? I want you to get better. I want you to be healthy so that you can live a long life and we can live this happily together. So all of the hair loss and everything happened right after he asked me to marry him. And I was desperate. I had one point said, just take me out. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sit up. I had this treacherous cough. You couldn't put me in a room with anyone because I coughed the entire time. And prayed a lot for health, and went to church and please save me. And we didn't know what to do because I'd seen, umpteen doctors and no answers. And they had no idea. So like I said, I was just started teaching, and a teacher said, I think you need to go see this holistic doctor that I went to for my fibromyalgia. So I was like, I'll try anything at this point. So I would sit in my car, and this is my first year teaching. You think I'd be excited about getting in there, setting up my classroom. I would sit in the car till the bell rang and then try to make my way into the class. I thought I would lose my job. And, they knew that something wasn't right with me. But so thank goodness I had a great principal at the time that let me get healthy. So I went to this holistic doctor. I was speaking with him. He looked at my eyes, looked at my mouth, looked at my ears. He goes, I know what's wrong with you. And I was like, Right. I'm very skeptical. I was like, give me a break. I've seen every doctor. No one knows what's wrong with me. Because no, I do. And then he proceeded to do some muscle testing. I don't know if you've ever seen muscle testing.
Yeah.
It shows the weakness in your bodies and the strengths. And I was like, well, what's wrong with me? He said, you have an overgrowth of candida. So candida, and a lot of people are a little bit confused. It's a type of yeast, and it starts in our body. And if it inflames and continues to build in our body without it being washed out in different ways, then it attacks your bones, your muscles, your organs, and causes a lot of autoimmune and an illness that we see today. I think, honestly, in my opinion, most illnesses start there. So he gave me a bath, and this is a crazy story. He said, here's a bottle. You go home, you take a bath in this for a week, and you will start seeing a difference. So, I came home with this bottle, showed my husband. I'm like, I'm getting in the bath right now. I don't care. And he's like, how many caps do we put in? I said, I don't know. Just pour half the bottle in, whatever. Just pour it in. So he poured it in. I'm sitting in the bathtub, and I had strings coming out of every pore in my body. Strings coming out of my arms and my legs and my feet. Wow. Unfortunately, when you say yeast, you think of, women problems or something like that. But it's not. It's everyone has candida in their body. And if it becomes out of control, it becomes something else. So within, he had given me some herbs, some vitamins, and within a few weeks, my hair started to grow. I wasn't the only thing that made me feel good when I was sick was to stand in a hot shower, which at the time I didn't know. I was baking that candida inside me, which was making it worse, but it gave me short-term relief. And then within a few weeks, I started feeling better and walking. The cough went away, and I ended up getting back to my healthy self. And so that's just the beginning of the story. But then that was my first real encounter with a holistic health practitioner.
And then your son, so fast forward a few years, and you have two boys, and one of your sons had very serious allergy issues and some other issues as well. And you leaned on, after taking him to lots of doctors, you leaned on holistic health for him too.
Yeah, we had seen about 15 doctors for my 5-year-old who was born healthy. Everything seemed fine, except he didn't sleep the first 8 months of his life, which is not really, typical of a child, a brand new baby. So we kind of knew something was off, but nothing, you go to a doctor, he's fine. He's just, cranky or colicky. And within, I started getting him tested, I think at the age of 4.5, 5.5. We had seen so many doctors. We had every Western allergy test done. He had blood work. He had biopsies. They put him on I call them the zombie drugs, because he was misdiagnosed with autism, ADHD, behavioral issues. He used to bang his head. And the only thing that they told me to do was hold him down. And they showed me how to hold him down when he was doing that. So, he would rip off his clothes. He spoke fine. He played when he was not having his flare-ups. He would play. We had him in soccer at a little tiny age. And you would think that he was a normal kid by looking at him. The one thing that I do notice that when I look back when he was small is that he had the really big dark circles under his eyes, which is a telltale sign of allergies in smaller kids. So I was standing outside the store my father flew in from Georgia to cut open the new mattresses because one doctor tried to tell me that there must be bed bugs somewhere. I had gotten him a bunk bed at 5, so we cut open the brand. I was desperate. We didn't know what to do. So we were standing outside the pet store giving away his guinea pig because I didn't know what else to do at this point. I thought something's got him and I don't know what it is. So I call her my angel lady. I've seen her a couple times, but she showed up and this woman goes, "What's wrong, honey?" And it's an elderly lady with bright blue eyes and white hair. And I told her the short story of what was going on. She goes, "Oh, honey, I got you." And I was like, I'm standing there. I'm like, what? Wait, how do you mean you have me? She goes to her car. She calls out a woman that was sitting with her. And they walk over to me and she hands me this card. She goes, "This card saved my daughter's life when she was young. You need to go see this person." And it was a NAET practitioner, which is Dr. Nambudiprad's allergy elimination technique. So she goes, autoimmune allergies, eczema, behavioral issues, emotional disorders. I didn't know at the time, but that's what NAET treats. And they do it holistically without medications and without needles or, any of that. So after 7 sessions, they treated him for the basics of the body, which are the vitamins and minerals and some basics like egg and milk. After 7 sessions, actually after the first, we noticed a difference because they treated him for sadness because he was always like sad and angry, banging his head. So I was like, can we do... So they did the original one, which is BBF, and then they added sadness. And on the way home, he bawled his eyes out for 5 hours. I called them like, what'd you do to my son? I was like, why is he crying like this? She's like, it's a release. Let him cry. Let it go. Just let him cry it out. So after 25 hours, my son was no longer that sad child that I could not figure out why he was sad, So after 7 sessions, 6 more, he was a completely different child, completely. No more head banging, no more crying, no more redness under the eyes, no more itching, no more screaming, no more yelling, no more nothing. And he could eat whatever he wanted. At the time, I thought I was doing the right thing. He was eating apples and broccoli and corn, and they had found 85 undiscovered food allergies that the Western medicine had missed.
Yeah. So first of all, it's incredibly powerful, both your twin stories there. And just for clarification, NAET is NAET, correct?
Yes.
So not as opposed to the person's name. So where now do you come, how do you balance? Because obviously Western medicine does have its purposes. And before we get into what how you are a practitioner, where do you find the balance? Where is the healthy balance between Western medicine and Eastern medicine?
So...
And maybe it's not. Maybe it's totally imbalanced, and that's a fine answer if that's where you're thinking.
So I think that if more people paid attention to the little things, those little signs that they now look back and they say, "Oh, I missed that. I was itchy, or I did have, like some people get a heart pulsation in their eye, or they're angry in the mornings, or they're not sleeping, or they're not going to the restroom a couple times a day. They're not, if they look back at those signs and got those, the cause of what now has exploded into something that needs Western medicine, then you can almost stop just about every ailment that exists. That's my opinion. I mean, sometimes you get to, like stage 4 cancer, and I had someone that had stage 4 lung cancer, and he actually is still alive. He's an older man and he's doing really well. And it wasn't just because of me. He did have some Western medicine. He would go for the chemo and those things. But I think if we paid more attention to our health and the changes in our body, we could stop those things that are causing us to end up in places that we don't want to be with our health.
Yeah, that's great.
How do you balance that with being a hypochondriac and being like every little ailment is a problem?
Well, I do get that also in my practice. I do get that. Sometimes it depends on your practitioner, right? So when people walk in and they say, I have this and I have this and I have this, and I said, I always go back to their history. When did this start? Was there trauma? When did you think that you had whatever ailment that they think they might have? So you may have to treat the person's emotional balance first, because our emotions, our spirit, they all affect our physical well-being. And I think that's what's missed in a lot of Western medicine. I'll give you an example. I have a diabetes doctor because I am type 1 diabetic, which I got an adult onset of type 1 diabetes when I was 19. I went to my doctor 6 months ago and I had lost 30 pounds. I've lost 30 pounds because I've just really cut back on my food and I'm running 4 miles a day and that kind of thing. He didn't even ask about my weight. I was waiting. I was waiting for him to say, what is this 30 pounds that you dropped? Not even a second look. So, and he's like, I see your blood work. I'm like, yep, I've already looked at it. It's just, I feel like it's become kind of a factory. And I know that, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, I know that most doctors get kickbacks from giving you certain medications. So they're just saying, okay, here, try this. Okay, here, try this. And looking for something so that you either have to come back to them for another ailment, or you are just suppressing what is actually causing, your itchiness or your cough but we're not getting down to the nitty gritty of when did this start? How did it start? Well, how did you feel? And, there's just I spend an hour and a half when I do my initial visits with my patients. And, that's a lot of time and time is money. But I believe if you speak to someone long enough and you watch the way they move and you check out just the basics, their hand movements, their eyes, that you can figure out not everything, but you get a kind of an idea of where the person stands in their wellness and their health.
So how often do people come in to see you because they are, well, I'm sure there's some balance of curiosity, skepticism, and especially when you start talking about treating spirituality. I'm all open to this, by the way, so I'm not asking this aggressively.
No.
How do you help them cross over into an understanding that this is going to be part of well, the word is holistic, right? A full body, full approach, 360-degree kind of a treatment. I would imagine that takes some convincing at times.
I think it helps that I'm a little intuitive. So when I'm speaking with someone, I just start asking, the deeper questions that they've never been asked. When you go to a doctor, they're not asking, like, what did you eat this morning? How often you use the restroom? What is your favorite food? What grosses you out? Because when you don't like something, it's telling you that your body does not like that.
Yeah.
The things that I think that are missed, and people start to say, well, I've never been asked that question, or I've never had someone say, what's that bump next to my ear? Or the deeper level questions that I don't think Western medicine asks. I think that's what, and I care. I think that helps too.
Yeah.
So, and I do have a friend that's very skeptical. He's Crohn's, and I'm like, look, just come in. You're my friend. I'll treat you for free. Let's go. Let me help you. And he's like, I'm not doing that muscle testing thing. I don't know if you're pushing up or down or sideways or making my arm fall. And I'm like, how can you're a grown man. There's no way I'm making your arm fall. But, I do get a lot of that skepticism. And I think after the first session and that quality time that I spend with the patient, and I include with that first session, their first treatment, I have another girl that I met, and she came in and I included with her their one treatment, and she's like, I don't know what you did, but I walked in Whole Foods, and I usually wander around Whole Foods. She's like, I knew exactly what I wanted, where I was going, and what I wanted, and it was out in 7 minutes. She's like, usually I'm not that sharp, sharp with it. So I don't think it's a matter of convincing someone. I just think it's a matter of caring about that person enough to show them that they can have a quality of life without meds.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to get a little controversial here. Where do you fall? I mean, there's a lot of news about this stuff now, okay? The Tylenol news came out recently. The vaccine stuff is going on now. I just want your opinion. There's opinions, not facts. So
right.
Where do you fall in some of that stuff? And do you want to talk in vague terms, or do you want a specific question? I don't know. Like how do you answer this? I'm sure you've been asked.
Oh, well, I believe the vaccines caused my son to have all those ailments. So when my younger son got vaccinated, my older son had no problems. We're all made differently. So he had no problems, no behavioral issues. But when my younger son came in, he was just a baby, and I can't remember the dates or times or what vaccines exactly he got. I could probably go back to his records. They gave him 3 vaccines in one day in his little leg. And I drove home, and I'm like, he's crying. And I looked back, and his leg was swollen, like really swollen. So I immediately called the doctor. I pulled over. I'm like, something's wrong. Something is wrong. His leg is giant. Something's wrong. So I bring him in, and they're like, we're sorry. I was like, and I didn't understand it. I was only, 28 years old back then. I didn't have the training that I do now. I didn't really understand. I just was that typical person that walks in and says, yes, the protocol is to have my baby vaccinated.
Yeah, I went through this with my daughter. This is something similar. Keep going, and I'll tell my story in a minute.
Yeah, and so, there was really no repercussions, or just later on, they put so much in a vaccine. It's just not a polio vaccine. They don't just put the antigen for polio to excite the body to attack it. They put the mercury and the aluminum. They have to have something that actually gets your body to respond, and they want it to respond quickly. So it starts to attack that mercury and aluminum, which the body cannot eliminate, and then it goes to the polio. It's not, or whatever vaccine you're getting, it's not just the vaccine in that little shot anymore. So I think that's the difference between now and what was happening 40, 50 years ago, where it was definitely a cleaner vial that they were putting into our children.
Interesting. So what is it HPV that they give girls in their teenage?
And boys.
Okay, so my daughter literally passed out and banged her head when she had that.
Yeah.
And they were the same way. They were like, oh my God, we're so sorry. We've never seen this before. This never happens. And we're like, you sure this never happens? My daughter's the only one that ever passed out from this.
Right.
So yeah, I was like, that was my first real, part of whether the necessity, obviously polio and their necessity, but yeah, I think the studies have to continue to come out, for this.
And what about other issues where we've struggled to find root causes? And I'm not talking specifically about vaccinations, but how does holistic medicine help with ADHD? You brought ADHD up at one point, and other sort of social generalized anxiety disorders.
Well, I have an example of that.
Yeah.
And usually anxiety disorders come from somewhere, right? They start somewhere. So I had a ROTC young lady. She had grown up in the military world, going through ROTC in high school, and had been selected to, and I can't remember which academy it was, but had been selected to go on with her career in the military. And she had encountered two traumas very close to each other. And some people might say they're not big traumas, but for an 18, 19-year-old girl, they were. Her best friend died and her grandfather at the same time. And then her mother, it was a rugby mom. I told you about my rugby story, but it was a rugby mom. She's like, I know I've heard a little bit about what you do, and can I bring my daughter in? And I said, can you please explain the scenario, what's going on? And she said, she can't get out of bed. She has no motivation. My daughter, who was a straight A student, was trying to take summer classes for the college and can't even open a book. And she has extreme anxiety. She's shaking all the time. She can't focus. She can't concentrate on reading a sentence. And, it did come from that trauma. Once I started asking questions, and, she cried in about 4 seconds. So with the emotional part of what I do, there are 4 kits of different emotions: procrastination, anxiety, sadness, you name it. And I started treating her for sadness, anxiety, trauma. There's an ADHD vial. There's a bunch of different vials that addressed what she was going on and what was happening with her. And this was about 2 years ago when I treated her. She is now a successful military recruit to, I think it was the Navy or Army maybe. So, and her mom is, just thankful that she was able to get back out of bed and get back on track. So sometimes in what NAET does, and you're probably wondering, it resets the nervous system. So your nervous system responds, and I always give the example, if you smell something bad, you back off real quick. You're like, oh gosh, and you back up. You put your finger under hot water, your finger pulls away. So that's kind of the same reaction that the body has when it encounters something it doesn't like. It's a trauma response. You pull away. And the internal, the way that your body works is it's going to, I always call it like a bump in the road. It creates a bump in the road. And if you keep going over that bump in the road with your car, eventually the wheels start getting loose, and until you keep going over it and the wheels fall off. And then you're like, well, what happened? I don't remember that tiny bump in the road. But it all starts from, I believe it all starts from somewhere. And whether it's a medication they're on, a trauma response, a lot of kids are being born with allergic to milk, and gluten's a big one. And all of that can be treated when you start with the cause.
So where do people go? Okay, this is a podcast that's national. You're local here in Delray. People can come to you. But in a big picture, where do people go to research this more, to get the answers on what they can do in alternate medicine to help them with whatever it is, behavioral or something physical. Like, where can they go to learn more about this? Like a first source. They hear this on the news, they hear their politicians talking about it, and they hear people on podcasts talking about it. But where can they actually go and read more and be more involved in this?
So NAET was created by Dr. Nan Budaprad in 1986. She also put out a book. It says, Say Goodbye to Illness, or I think, Illness. Say Goodbye to Illness. And it's a great book to read because it actually explains how we have to reset the nervous system to respond, positively instead of negatively. I would start there. I try to get my patients to read the book before they come in so they understand exactly what we're doing. But there's so many alternative cures and herbs and things that you can do to get yourself on the right path. We just have to research it. I can't tell you the numbers of books that I have in my house that I'm constantly cross-referencing to make sure that I'm doing the right thing for that person. So
that's my point. Is there's so much, like, people will read a tweet or they'll see a post, and what I'm kind of imploring people to do is have the depth of knowledge that you have, and really dive into it, and not go from a couple things that you hear here and there, like
right.
on both sides, whether it's vaccines or whether it's alternative solutions. It's just I think people have to do their own research and be smart about this,
without a doubt. And I there's so much on the internet now. I get, because of my scroll is all
your
health
algorithm.
and wellness.
Yeah.
It's all health and wellness. So I'm like, well, that's interesting, but let me make sure that that's correct. You can't
I think
believe
that's so important.
Yeah. There's so many people out there that say this works for this. Well, there's 100 other people that say this works to make your hair grow. Right now, there's like 50,000 different solutions to make your hair grow.
Right.
Which one do you know works? And how do you know it works? And what does it do to your body to make it work?
Well, I think what's happening, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is some of the integrative wellness is crossing over to the way Western medicine is sold. So you'll see these commercials and things on TV that are almost pitching themselves as like kind of a Western pharmaceutical ad, and they're either and they're not. They're like alternative medicine. So you're seeing, like, I don't know, the lines crossing, right?
Well, yeah. And honestly, they're crossed very easily. And I can give you an example. There's an herb called mullein. Guess what pharmaceutical product is made from mullein? It's super easy. Once I say it, you're going to know.
Melatonin.
No?
What's a guess? Oh, Mucinex. That makes sense.
So you can buy Mucinex over the counter. I just gave my husband mullein this morning because he has a little bit of a cough. It's an expectorant. It's a natural herb. Instead of getting it from you're getting a little bit of that herb in the pharmaceutical stuff, but you're also getting all the synthetic biomarkers to keep it alive on the shelf. It's I believe if we go back to the natural ways that this earth was made for us, that we will find more solutions than we ever could find in a pill or in a box.
Yeah.
I think that's
right. Eastern medicine. Yeah. We hear about it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. I need to get a copy of the card and follow and learn more about NAET and several things I want to ask you. I'm coming in
because I have a lot of things that I have going on. Yeah. We're going to talk further offline, but fascinating episode. Thank you so much for your time.
Really and for sharing your stories. Those are powerful stories.
Really, really powerful stories. Thank you so much. So where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, I'm a big believer in there are certain tests that Western medicine does really well. Blood tests, imaging tests, et cetera. And there are certain surgeries and other things that need to be done or that can be best done at a certain point in the development of an illness. So we shouldn't just throw out Western medicine. We can discuss the inefficiency of the processes of Western medicine, that doctors don't get to spend a lot of time with you, don't get to spend enough time with you to really know you as a patient, and that their obligations to their healthcare company, the insurance companies, et cetera. And so therefore it is important to become an advocate for one's own health and the application of we call them alternative. They shouldn't be thought of as alternative. They should be thought of as integrative, which is where we've started this a few months ago.
And preventative, right? And proactive, we've talked about too.
Yes.
It's get out in front of it, be proactive rather than reactive. All of our medicine, Western medicine, is reactive, which was what happened to me, waiting too long, having prostate, needing to get radioactive surgery. I will say this too. I would be very uncomfortable not getting my biannual biopsy. It's at least telling me that it hasn't come back all the way, or I'm doing the right things holistically to keep whatever might come back at bay. I need that still, right? So there are certain things, to your point, that keep you in the Western medicine world. But I think it's more important for us to keep talking about, the pharmaceutical industry too, and how much money there is behind keeping you sick, and treating the reaction to it, rather than having these doctors that do that. They want you to be sick. They don't have a job if you're not sick, if you don't have an ailment. Western doctors don't have a job. So there is that, and they don't even know it. I don't think they do it purposefully. They do have an oath to help people, but a lot of them are fueling it. I'm amazed that I can't find the type of doctor that StrataMed has out that we talked about in Colorado Springs, that has a cardiologist like Michael Barber, who lived in the Western world for so long and is now practicing Eastern medicine, still understanding that he can do the heart tests that are Western and then treating it with Eastern. How are there not more doctors that have said, I'm going to cross that line and do both? I can't find one in South Florida. I have tried to find a doctor like the doctors out in Colorado that I met in South Florida. I cannot find one. I can find tons of people that practice Eastern medicine. I can find plenty of primary care physicians that practice Western. I can't find somebody that does both. Why is that?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I don't know the answer. My speculation on that would be that it's just not how they're trained, right? They're trained through medical schools, and they're trained a certain way, and that becomes their gospel in a way. I want to separate one thing that you said there that I think is important, which is, you said that there's money in keeping people sick. I don't believe that. I believe that there's money in keeping the shelf life of products, as Kerri suggested. I do believe that it's important that we follow evidence, that scientific studies do matter. We should look at when there's a vast majority of medical experts, scientists, and there are comprehensive studies as to how something is working. We need to pay attention to that. We shouldn't just dismiss that. So, and where, especially in light of or in opposition to things where people say where it's just speculative.
You don't think Ozempic is keeping people sick? The goal of that is not to treat what your problem is. It's like wanting people to stay sick. You're taking a drug that's you have to keep taking as you're poisoning your body with too much food or whatever you're doing. I would make this distinction. I think Kerri said this too. I think they're interested in treating the effect and not the cause. And so it can serve a purpose as serving the effect. But I feel like we're saying the same thing.
But there is deeper work that one must do. And I don't think that's a bad thing. If people are suffering, if they can't get through their lives because they are, congested or whatever it might be, that will treat that aspect of it. But you're not supposed to stay on that forever. And that's where the individual needs to come in, because you do need to go after the cause. And I do think, I'll agree with you to this point, that a company, I don't know enough about Ozempic to be able to say this about them specifically, but I do think they present that solution, your comfort, your temporary comfort, as an overall solution. It's up to us as individuals to go then after the cause. Western medicine doctors can do that. But I also believe that integrative medicine, Eastern medicine, can be that solution too. I have found that for me. I know of other people who have tried a lot of other things in Western medicine and should try Eastern. I've seen you succeed with some things that are in Eastern medicine. And so I think it is really up to us to not look at any it's up to us to have the open-mindedness to look at all of the different things and see what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And I think there is some balance between Western medicine and Eastern medicine, and we are far imbalanced towards the Western.
We're going to have to agree to disagree a little bit, because I think a company, and there's others like it, I shouldn't just pinpoint Ozempic, wants to have type 2, they want you to stay sick. They want to have type 2 diabetics that they can keep serving, right? They want, their whole business is based on type 2 diabetics. So if type 2 diabetics went away because people like Kerri helped it go away, they're out of business, right? So they do have a business of keeping you sick. So that's just, I mean, that's an example, and there's others, but so we're gonna have to agree or disagree on that. That's how I think the pharmaceutical companies run. Like, and I think that's a good example.
I think they make the next product is what I think they do. I mean, and look, I don't know. I'm not inside it. I think we'll both be speculating. But I do think, I mean, I want to see Kerri about a whole bunch of things. I'm going to have look, my sleep. We've talked about that a lot. I want to know more about why I hate peaches so much. She's going to tell me that, I know, at some point.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I was trying to think of the foods that I hate when she said that, and why. Like, I don't have too many. I love everything. Calf's liver, maybe.
I like liver.
See?
Yeah, there it is. Who knows? Who knows why it is?
Just a fascinating episode.
Yeah,
these ones really get my mind going and really get me thinking, and really want me to do more when I walk out this door for my own personal health. You know, I do a lot already on this journey, but I never feel like I'm doing enough. So that's where I stand. Hopefully you learned a lot on this episode.
Yeah, yes, I hope our audience did too. And I think the one takeaway is have an open mind about all of it.
Do your own research.
Whatever it is, do your own research. Find out what works for you, because regardless of where you stand on pharmaceuticals or vaccines or anything else, it's not ever one size fits all. Everybody has their own individual need, and you should find out what yours is. So thank you for listening, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on The Back Nine.